Good afternoon. I'm Dan Hounsell. I'm senior editor with Trade Press Media Group, and I'm talking today with Terrel Chesson, who is deputy director with the City of Baltimore's Department of General Services. We are talking about rightsizing your building portfolio. His department is facing a challenge that is becoming increasingly familiar to facility managers in all types of facilities, perhaps especially so to those that rely on public funds for their operations. So, Terrel, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I guess the first place to start is just to give folks a sense of the facilities that you're working with, so sort of a thumbnail of, whatever it might be, the total number, the square footage, but how would you characterize these facilities that you're overseeing?
So, sure. We have a number of different profiles of buildings. So we own buildings that service the police department. We also provide service for fire department, but most of the major city agencies, mayor's office, comptroller, law department, most of all the major entities are in our facilities. So I would profile it as mixed office use building, some health departments, and then a number of other specialty buildings, including the fleet facilities. At the moment, we have 70 buildings in our portfolio, 12 of them, 70 buildings that we own and lease. Let me clarify that. 12 of those buildings are historic properties. Of that 70 buildings, we have a little over 3.5 million square feet. The general age or average age of the facilities, general facilities are 60 years old. And for the historic properties, the average age is actually 147 years old. Fun fact that these are most of my team members. So fun fact is that City Hall turns 150 years old this year. So we'll be celebrating that this year as well. So that's just one thing I wanted to mention. And then if we want to switch gears a little bit, and this is kind of getting into the driver or while we are doing the right sizing effort, our deferred maintenance backlog is roughly $165 million, and that's with critical systems or needs that should be done today. The overall capital need is roughly $1.2 billion.
And just out of curiosity, what is your oldest building?
The oldest building, I believe the oldest building is one of our courthouses, the circuit courts. I'll have to verify that, but I believe it's Mitchell Courthouse. Does anybody have that? I'll have to verify, get back to you. We'll verify. It's old. No, it's very old, very old.
And before we discuss the right-sizing question in particular, I wonder if you could just describe the challenges that you and your team are facing simply maintaining and repairing the facilities as you go.
So the main challenges that we have, I'll have to go back and discuss, of course, the age and condition, because I mentioned the age, I mentioned the deferred maintenance backlog. Those two things together contribute to many of the challenges that we have. If we, in a snapshot, we have to look at the fact that, every day the building gets older. Every day something deteriorates a little more. When we consider the actual investment need that we have, to me, that is the major challenge that we have. So it's literally age, condition, and then the fact that we're not able to get the level of funding that we need to actually invest, replace systems, renovate areas, and also the facade of the building. That just continues to compound the need for the right sizing effort. Also, one thing that's not necessarily building specific is, I would say, a nationwide issue is the ability to recruit. We've done a lot of, we put forth a lot of effort to recruit. We do have really good people, but it has not been easy to recruit these people. There's a lot of competition locally. A lot of municipalities pay more than some, in the city. And just the effort to be competitive has been a little difficult, been a challenge, but we are continuing to push through to try and meet the need for the customers and for the city.
With those challenges in mind, I understand your organization, your department has taken on or initiated the right-sizing process. In that process, what would you say are the initial steps that you have undertaken to get a handle on the right-sizing decisions that you have to make?
So We've focused on four major uh, deliverables. The first one has been ongoing for a number of years, which is the facility conditions assessments for each building. We refer to that as the FCI, which is the Facility Condition Index, which is actually a database that compiles each building systems, the conditions of each system. So if it's still in use, beyond useful life, critical system status, it tells us everything. And then in addition to actually cataloging the condition and the actual system, we have the costs associated with repairing, replacing each system now and then in the future at different points. So we'd say, this it costs this to replace now, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We have an idea of what that cost will be and then the impact that it would have on the building and also our budget at different points in time. That's the first thing. And I also want to mention that the FCI range is from 0 to 100. So as the score increases, that means the condition of the building or the portfolio is in worse condition. Right now, our portfolio average is 51%. It's not good. It's not good at all. We use this database for day-to-day planning, operational, and also it's critical in our capital investment planning as well. So we do rolling 6-year cycles. So we use this to engage our customers, to engage the actual agency heads, department heads, to understand exactly what they should focus on, and then why we need it, and also with the planning department and the mayor's office as well. One fact, won't call it a fun fact, but one fact is we calculated that if we continue to invest what we're investing now, our FCI will increase to 99% in the next 6 years. And that means that that's actually in the status of demo. You should demo or being condemned. We also calculated best case scenario for us is that if we're able to invest $153 million per year for the next 6 years, it will decrease our FCI from 51%, which it is now, down to 20%. So, that is our goal. It's a challenge, but we are working towards finding ways to do this, which, once again, is why we're focusing on decreasing our portfolio and the footage to be able to meet the need with current budget and also maybe an increase if we're able to get that. Sorry, no, got a few more. I'm sorry, I paused, so the next tool, space assessment modeling. So we call it SAM. We created a tool that allows us to standardize how we recommend space use, how we lay out space, and how we engage our customers to understand what they actually need. So example is if you came to me and said, hey, I have an office space, I have 10 new employees coming in and I need 10 offices. I would actually say, okay, Dan, let's sit down, let's talk about what you actually need. How many people do you have? What's your programming like? Do you have supervisors? All these people supervisors? Do they all need an office to engage with staff? What do you need and what do you do? And that tool, it has a lot of formulas built in. We're able to put in qualitative and quantitative information, and it literally yields the recommendation that you need. So we're able to say, hey, Dan, we actually figured that you need 4. You need 4 offices. You can work hybrid to a certain extent. You can do reservations for certain spaces because of how you operate, and you may need 1 space for public-facing operations, but you actually need this. And then it allows you to spend less on leases, on lease costs. It allows us to be able to utilize the other space more efficiently, and of course, we'll just be more fiscally responsible with resources. Not last, but third thing, which I consider to be more of an analysis tool, 2 things actually: TCO, total cost of ownership, and also market analysis. So for total cost of ownership, that's straightforward, but in many cases, you have junk in, there's junk out. So it's just sitting down with our portfolio managers, with the real estate section, and also with our fiscal team to understand exactly what our costs are, what they should be, and to actually build a budget that reflects, where we want to go. With the market analysis, that's more the external, I'd say external macro approach. We need to understand exactly how the market sees our facilities. If we're assuming that maybe we could sell a building, that may not actually be the realistic case. We have buildings that we would love to sell them, but there's no attractiveness. The area is not attractive. The building itself has no allure, and we ultimately, there's nothing that we can do with it. So, we're also doing that. And the last thing is the actual decision-making framework, which is the tool that we're using all these things I mentioned before as inputs to actually analyze each building one by one, qualitative and quantitative information, and to make the decision on how to proceed with that building, whether it's sell, demo, sell with option to lease back. There are many options, but this allows us to say this is the best option. So that's where we are with what we use.
And I do have one follow-up question on something you mentioned. You mentioned the discussions that you have with somebody requesting office space. I'm guessing those are kind of a different function for you to have to not to have a discussion with somebody as opposed to years ago you would have simply said, okay, here's 10 offices. How challenging are those discussions when you are going through this, the different parameters?
It's so I probably will touch on this and later, but it's we have to balance the emotion versus the logic. So logically, we could say, well, these are your numbers, you have this. You have to understand that many people see what they do differently than what it actually is. Not saying that it's not significant, but they just see it differently. They may not realize that you can do more with less. During the pandemic, we were able to really understand how to be I would say more frugal with our resources. So for us, it's understanding, listening, and then just being able to carefully nudge and push back a little with the outcome, with the understanding that we are all working on the same goal, which is to provide them with what they need. But it's just aligning the resources, I would say, responsibly. So that's how we approach it.
Very good, very good. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how much progress you have actually made in terms of getting rid of facilities, whether that's to demolish or sell or repurpose, or sort of where are you in the process of right-sizing?
So we're making, I would say, great strides. We actually have began offloading, I think 2 facilities. They're in the process of being offloaded. But as far as the right-sizing, what we call the right-sizing effort is concerned, we're far ahead of what you would think if you actually just sat down and just saw table exercises. We've done everything that I mentioned before. We're still working on the market analysis because that's a rolling effort. Even if it's done, we have to update it. Also, we are working on the framework, actually completing the framework for the first 2 facilities that have not been offloaded, that are not being offloaded. They're complete. We're actually circling back with the other stakeholders, real estate section for the city, the comptroller, a number of other folks to ensure that everybody is aligned. But we also taking the approach of being able to do everything more efficiently. So the first 2 that we're pretty much complete with, those are actually being used as proof of concept. So we've tracked all activity, all engagement, timing to complete each section, who it's assigned to, and we're creating a project tracker to be able to chart out how to best complete the remaining, I think now it's 9 buildings left in that effort to complete the remaining 9 buildings. So we're aiming to have everything done in a couple months and then hand it over to the mayor's office to be able to have that to review and make decisions.
For those particular buildings? Okay.
Yep.
How long, and this is kind of a follow-up question, but do you have a number for how long this process could take or should take to complete, or is it just it's not going to be complete, it's just going to be ongoing?
So it will be complete. So at the moment, we're looking at the end of the year to actually have a number of the frameworks done. There still may be a few more depending on maybe some being added, but we're looking at end of the calendar year to have a number of the actual framework decision works done and then handed over. And as far as decisions to be made, that's a different thing, right? We don't control that, but we're trying to put together the information to make sure that there's little ambiguity, there's very little uncertainty, and then the responsible decisions can be made with the information in front of those folks.
Obviously, this is a very complex process, a lot of moving parts, a lot of variables, but it does offer, I'm assuming, a lot of opportunities for learning. Yeah. Is there anything that you have taken from this process so far that you think is important to share?
Yes. I would say it's all about communication. The level of communication. Like we understood that with this being an enterprise-wide effort, the level of communication had to be a little more than just sending an email or doing one meeting here and there. But I would say the level of communication, understanding what each stakeholder needs to know, has been a lesson learned. And I mentioned separating or understanding the difference between emotion and logic and how to balance it. That's been big because I can put together a report and hand it over, and for me, it makes sense, right? It's a no-brainer. But when the recipient gets it, they may say, "Okay, I see this, but I still think this is the answer." I tell my team, if you ever want to see how the range of response and understanding happens, read a post, right? Read a social media post, and you get the wide range of everything that people may think can happen, and you may say, "It's not possible. That's impossible. That's not logical." But it's not about that. So you have to balance the logic and the emotion to appeal to the person that's receiving the information. So for me, that was a lesson learned, and we've done very well in navigating it. But it was just a thing that I saw, and I sat back and said, "Wow, why am I have to explain this? This should be." But that was something I definitely took to heart, and now we're implementing that in our plan as well for communication.
I see we have a number of people here. I don't know if anybody is going through this or is contemplating going through this. If you have a question for Terrel on his progress through this process. Anybody have a question? Okay. Just one quick follow-up question, and it's kind of a version of I think what I asked you before, but it's fascinating to me, the emotions of this process. Is that something you counted on or knew was coming when you got into this process, or was that something that you kind of had to deal with on the fly?
Both. So I understood that there are certain stakeholders that you may know that they're not privy to, like the operations or the numbers or the process. You would assume that I would have to engage them in a certain way. But then there's some that you would assume are in the know because this is something that they work with every day. Like they encounter the problems, it's in their face. For those parties, not so much. You wouldn't expect it, but for me, it was a mixture of both. So now it's the understanding that you have to gauge your audience, understand their level of understanding, and then pay attention to kind of see like the input they're giving. Understand that, like digest it in a way that you can tailor your response, or at least have something in the response to make sure that they're getting what they need to understand, and then also buy in. Yep.
All right, very good. Well, thank you for joining us today, Terrel. Excellent information. Did somebody have a question? Oh, go ahead.
Yes, so our energy section is also a part of the committee that's working on this. So we're definitely factoring that in. There are a number of buildings that need monumental upgrades to be able to meet the actual standard. In some cases, and I hate to say this, but in some cases, it's cheaper to pay the fine than to actually do the upgrade. But we've met I think it's 80%, we've met the actual current requirement by energy credits and a couple other projects that we've done. But the reality is that we are looking at each building case by case to determine how to further be, because we want to be responsible. We want to be responsible. We want to be sustainable. We want to make sure that we are doing what we can to, try to meet zero emissions if possible. But the reality is that it is a fiscal exercise too. So we are working on that to ensure that we can build that calculation into the budget and the planning, for sure. So we're looking at solar. Geothermal has been a conversation in the last few months. We're also looking at sub plants as well. So everything has been on the radar. It's just a matter of what works. And once again, our facilities they're old. So even making a minor modernization, it's costly. So we back at square one with reducing the size, getting rid of some of the buildings or repurposing some of the buildings so we have less footage to do more with, and then we definitely can have more options as far as being able to do upgrades. That's the goal. But that definitely is on the table for us as well. So I appreciate that question.
Very good. Thank you for the question. So I think we should probably wrap this up now. Again, thank you, Terrell.
Thank you. Appreciate
Much
you.
appreciated. Very good information.
Thank you.